certain experiences and certain things that guys you should go through as you're coming up your early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, that you get to learn these things, learn these steps, right? I was babied to the point that it
because they thought that you weren't capable.
Here's the thing, it's not that they didn't think I wasn't capable, it's that they wanted to protect me from things that I was already doing. Welcome back to Fucking Alpha Project. Today we're talking money, boys. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about the effect of money on ourselves, how it affects our emotions, how it affects the opposite sex.
I have this theory, and I'd love to piggyback off of it. This theory that everything we do is essentially for purposes of mating.
Okay.
So we want to get good jobs or start businesses, make lots of money, have that money to buy nice things, and that elevates our status. And then with an elevated status, it gives us access to mate with higher quality people. Now, that's not always the case, but I think that 99% of what drives us to do what we do is based on that drive to do.
So what you're saying is
mating.
What you're saying is acquire currency and disregard females?
That's exactly it, except you can't disregard the females because once you have acquired money, currency,
whoa.
You put
see,
yourself
now,
in a
see,
really
it happens
bad place.
quick because now it's back down to 61.
Okay.
So it's
He's talking about
all over the
Dogecoin.
place.
This Dogecoin.
I'm holding
craze.
my phone for this entire episode.
Nice.
Because you're now addicted?
No, because I'm watching. Because this is absolutely whack what's happening right now.
It's wild.
And it's crazy how big of an influence.
You understand what whack means, right?
Whack.
Whack is bad.
Is whack bad?
Whack is bad. You said whack to me twice now in good terms. I'm like, what the
I
fuck are
think
you
whack
talking
is
about?
good. Whack can be good.
And it's also 20 years old. What are
Whack
you doing?
can be good. Yeah, but like
we're bringing
there's
it
a
back.
bunch
That's
of shit
what's
that's
happening.
20
You
years
can
old.
try.
Mullets are back.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mullets are back. Yeah. Well, see,
When did
now
you ever
it's
say-
74. It's just
Our
fucking
parents
white.
made fun of us. I remember when my girlfriend wore bell-bottom pants, and my parents were like, "That was such a '70s thing." Oh, hippie
Now they're back
love and
again.
shit. And they're back
That's
again.
right. They came back in the 90s with the grunge scene. And now they're back again.
All these.
I was talking to a customer today, and a client, and she was like, "Yo, I had to go buy my daughter. Or I bought my daughter bell bottoms online." And she's excited as hell for them. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, bell bottoms. Like, actually 70s bell bottoms. Like, this is ridiculous.
It's crazy.
It's crazy the things we try to do to make money.
20 years. That's the
or
cycle.
Just cut me off. That's cool too. Fuck, I'm so sorry.
No,
My fault. My fault.
The cycle is every 20 years. Everything fucking repeats itself. Look, okay, I love Drake. He's one of my favorite rappers of all time. All of his music is based on remixing, reformatting, or rebranding music
Sade.
from 20 years ago.
He's remixing Sade for the last fucking 10 years. That's all he's been doing.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting is that we do. Let me talk about just me. Over the course of my life, from I guess 16 till maybe 5 years ago, I would do anything to get ahead, and not anything. I mean, within reason. To get ahead, and by ahead I mean get as much money as you can, and try to pretend I was somebody I wasn't.
That's
right.
The status thing. Elevate
Right,
your
so
perceived
the status. So,
yeah.
I've slowly come to realize as I get older, I'm turning 39 in 2 weeks here, that the more look at this guy with this fucking
Putting
phone.
it away.
The more
We're rolling with it.
the more
We're
the more,
holding to $10.
There you go. There you go. The
That's
more you focus on what you want in life, the more it comes to you. The only issue with that is you can't focus on money because that's the only thing that doesn't come to you unless you have a passion for something that's going to make you that money. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like I was focused on the money. I was always focused on how do I get the next dollar, right? Instead of how do I build something to have those dollars come in, right? Do something I'm passionate about. Because once you're passionate about something, once you're doing something and people realize, oh shit, this guy actually loves what he's doing, you know, it's almost that magnetic effect, right? We do meetings with Nate Sheehan, a guy I mentioned on the podcast all the time. He does A-list clothing work, consulting for his business. The passion that guy has for his company and his clothing, and just the way he speaks about it, you know, I know that he's not going to go to a manufacturer that has lesser quality because he upholds himself to a higher standard. He upholds the product to a higher standard. It means he has passion for what he's doing, right? We just had a meeting with him. I just saw him argue with his manufacturer for half an hour through text and getting pissed off. We had to talk him off a fucking ledge because that's how passionate he is about it, right?
Right.
And I told him this, and I told 4 people this week, is never let emotion fuck up the money, right? However, if the emotion you're showing is passion towards that project, that's not fucking up the money. That's drawing it to you, even if you go 3 years without making
Passion's
$1.
going to make you work harder. When you give a fuck about something, you're going to work harder,
Absolutely.
right? Whether it's money or, you know, your job or a girl, whatever the fuck it is, passion's going to make you work harder. If you allow yourself to get caught up in waves, dangerous. Very dangerous.
It's the same thing with trading.
Because you lose control.
We go through this every morning with trades, right? Steve and I are in this trading company. Devon's going to be in probably a couple of weeks here. And the swings in market, we tell, you know, and it's literally a swing within half a second, 2 seconds. You might be holding a trade for 3 days. You might be holding a trade for 30 seconds. You never know. But the swings and the motions you get, you have to try and equal those out and say, you know what, I'm not going to let emotion come into this because now I'm actually dealing with money. Like the stock market is just money, right? So you have to think about it with almost with a closed eyes, and just deal with it or be walled off emotionally from it. Whereas if you're passionate about something, you put all your passion into that, and then eventually the money will come.
I think there's something to be said about channeling the emotions that you get to a level of productivity. So
okay, well let's dive into that a bit. So let's take it back to the conversation we were having earlier. Manufacturer is late on delivery.
Yeah.
Right. The bill's paid. We're waiting. We're literally waiting for the product to come.
Right.
Right. There's anger. There's frustration. There's this pent up aggression because there's nothing we can do about it. How do you channel that into something positive?
So if it's me in a situation like that, I always ask myself, to what end? What my actions are going to achieve some kind of outcome, and hopefully that outcome is the one that I intend it to be. So if the person on the other end of the line that I'm having this conversation with, to what end am I having this conversation? Do I want to achieve something and get to my goal? And if my goal is to have my product delivered here as quickly and efficiently as possible to the highest degree of quality, I think honey catches more flies. It's a very, very simple equation. On the other side, like you said, that anger, that frustration, that the challenges of the whole thing, now I put myself in a position where maybe I could just be having an ego trip and trying to correct that person. So now I'm spending all my time and energy on fixing what's wrong with that person. Well, you're being rude to me, or you're doing this, or this and that, back. And instead of addressing the issue. So to me, the channeling that frustration into something productive would be more along the lines of like, you know, hey, how are things on your end? Just want to double check and make sure that everything's happening according to schedule. Is there anything I can do to support that, to make sure that that happens? And if I can't accomplish that, I have to just let it be as it is. And I take that energy and that frustration and I put it somewhere else in my work.
That's a great way to handle that. I mean, and also learning from when you're getting frustrated and how you can go from there, right? Like there's been, like I said, you know, up until about 5 years ago, I used to just freak out all the time. I had a really short temper, and you know, it would just come out of nowhere, right? But learning how to deal with people and how you approach somebody with a concern or a suggestion or something, that leads into more of the leadership skills, right? So you're taking your leadership skills and you're forcing it on yourself to practice those skills, right? And Steve's a great guy at this. I'm sure he gets frustrated. He manages 15 people, you know, in and around there, right? So I mean, you see a bunch of different personalities all the time. There's got to be times when you're frustrated and you're like, okay, I'm frustrated with this person or the situation. How do you deal with the fact that maybe they don't want to listen, or they're doing something that is incorrect, and you have to try and change that without the frustration coming out? How does it make it come out positive to make them or affect the change?
Perfect example. Even today, I have a newer sales girl, and we did a delivery on a vehicle, and they'd sent us an e-transfer for a big chunk of the cost of the car, right? And she just delivered the vehicle, right? And she had messed up, and she had given the client my email address, and the email was wrong, right? So I'm like, okay, she had a screenshot of, you know, the transfer going through. However, there's no money received yet, right? So now it's a couple hours later. I'm like, there's no dough here, right? So then I had to follow up, and it was like, oh, hey, this is the email that I gave, and then it was wrong, right? So the initial reaction is like, okay, shit, you literally just let somebody leave without paying for it. Like, you know, you walk into a store, you buy a t-shirt, it's like, hey, you know what, like, I'll get you back for this one.
I'll go in the dressing room.
Right?
I'll walk out. It's all yours.
I'll get you back for this one. And so the initial response was, okay, that was a big fuck up, right? However, me getting pissed off or upset about it is not going to solve the problem, right? So the immediate response is, what's the solution? What's the immediate solution? What needs to happen? Okay, the problem is that we have a vehicle that we've delivered that is not paid for, right? Okay, cool. So now instead of getting pissed off at the sales girl, let's reach out to the client, right? Say, hey, this is a situation. Here's what happened. I need you to stop what you're doing and get this corrected, right? And it turned out into a positive situation. It's like, oh my God, so sorry about that.
And maybe it cost the customer $5 to cancel the transfer and just resend it, whatever.
It does, yeah. It doesn't even cost you anything to do that these days.
I think on mine it did way back in the day.
Well,
back in the day, I did.
You gotta switch banks.
Conversation. I told you.
And so the solution was, okay, let's reach out to the client, and then it's okay. We get the problem solved, right? Now everything's good. It's set up. We're paid, happy, and then it's a conversation. Okay, why would you give an email address that wasn't correct, right? And it's not you fucked up. It's not that you did this wrong. It's, hey, if you were lent your friend $100, right? Or if you were went out for dinner and your friends, you paid for the bill on your credit card, your friends, you transfer you $100. If you gave them the wrong email, what would happen? Well, how would you handle that? She'd be like, oh, well, that would just be really dumb. Like, I wouldn't get paid for that. I'm like, okay, cool. That's great. Thank you. We're on the same page now. She's like, oh, fuck. She's like, I'm so sorry. And it was really apologetic. And it was an actual constructive learning experience. Right?
Well, and I bet you she's going to double check the email every time from now on, right?
Right. So now
you better believe it.
Right. So now she knows that she screwed up and she can take that into account and be like, okay, she's going to double check everything. Not just the e-transfer.
And it was it.
She's
that was the conversation
everything.
Is like, you need to slow down, right? Especially when there's a transaction involved. And like, you need to think like that, how many different mini transactions do we do every day? Sometimes with money with different people, sometimes just in conversation, right? Everything is an interaction. Everything's an exchange. Slow the fuck down. Think about what you're going to say. Think about how you want to attack the problem. Come up with your ideal solution and then execute it.
That's a perfect example because, and here's another.
And you don't need to have emotion involved in that.
There's no emotion to it, right?
So there's a channeling of emotion that I think really helped you there. Rather than channeling that emotion into fixing and correcting and making sure that this person pays for their mistake, it was like, how can this become a learning thing? How can I use this anger, frustration, whatever emotion you were feeling? How can I use that in a constructive way to achieve a positive outcome?
And now here's the flip side of that, right? Tomorrow for my day job, we actually have to let go of one of the employees. It's been 3 years. She started very green. We taught her everything. We showed her exactly how to do things. And lately, over the last 6-7 months, we've been very patient with her. There's been a lot of screw ups. There's been a lot of misses. There's been a lot of complaints from clients and even from home builders, things like that. We're getting a lot of different complaints. It's not always the same complaint. It's always different. But the one complaint we get a lot is she's always talking. She talks too much. She talks about all people we don't know. We don't care about these people in our life. And we're talking about, we're dealing with, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Not small transactions.
It's not small transactions. So, when you're dealing with that kind of money, the customer and the client expects a certain amount of professionalism, right? She wasn't being professional. We pulled her aside numerous times. I can't even count how many times over the last 7 months. And it just got to the point where today, finally, one of the guys I contract from got a text from one of the home builders, said, listen, this girl, she's not welcome on our sites anymore. She talks too much. All she does is talk and walk around, and she doesn't get anything complete. And she says it's done, but it's never not. Somebody else always has to come back and finish what she started. So that was kind of the last straw, especially when you're looking at that builder is a $20 million a year builder for us. It's a $20 million account for us, right? So we're looking at it going, we really like this girl, great girl to be around, fun, whatever, but nobody can work with her. She's not learning, and she hasn't learned from her mistakes. So now we have to correct the issue.
And at that point, it's where's the investment go? Because you want to be able to, with people that you're working with, you want to be able to invest them. You want to be able to train them. However, you get to a point where you can say, okay, here's the expected amount of time it would take to learn a task, to get proficient at something, right? And if the person is not able to keep up to that, right, or if they're falling behind, or if if I'm showing somebody something 4, 5, 6 times, I'm just like, you're just not getting it. If that's a critical component to the task, like, I'm sorry, I don't have a problem. I used to struggle letting people go.
Yeah, not anymore.
I used to struggle firing people, Now I really look at it as a blessing, because honestly, if the person isn't able to figure it out by the point that I've said I'm done investing in you,
Hire,
it's not
hire
benefiting
fast,
them.
fire faster.
Well, and here's the thing too, is it actually speaks to
I disagree with that.
if they're not getting it, and if they're not working towards the thing that they're supposed to be doing, especially when it's simple or basic tasks or things that you need to function inside of that environment, perhaps they're not meant for that environment. And the longer you keep them there, the longer you keep them away from the thing that they're actually meant to be doing. And I believe, and maybe this is a little too woo-woo for this whole thing,
I
but
was just about to say, you're fucking way woo-woo.
I believe
He's
that
always
people
woo-woo
have
anyway.
a thing that they're meant to do because it fulfills them and it gives them joy, whether that's serving people coffee. And maybe you don't have to be a barista. You could own your own fucking coffee shop. You know what I'm saying? You could start the next Starbucks. But if that's what you're fucking meant to do and you're stuck over here doing car sales and you're just not getting it, you're not following the procedures and the systems and the things that are outlined and templated, you're wasting your fucking time. Not just your time, but your own time by being in the wrong environment. So as you said, a blessing it is for that person to be able to move on to the thing that actually does bring them fulfillment to some degree.
Steve, we'll touch on that hire and fire in just a second, but just a little personal experience from what you were saying there is that I used to do a bunch of menial jobs here and there, this and that, whatever, right? And every day I went to work I wake up and go, fuck, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do this, right? Since I was a kid, I always wanted to be a rapper, right? And I wanted to, I thought I wanted to be the guy that everybody looked up to and be that shining light and just that magnet that everybody wants to fucking be, right? I wanted to be Drake, let's put it that way, right? And I realized that it's not that I wanted to be a rapper. It's that I wanted to have the influence. And it's not even that I wanted to have the influence. I wanted to be able to stand on stage and be able to speak in front of a crowd. That's what it ultimately boiled down to, right? And this is true. We're talking 20 years of my life having to figure all this out, right? So instead of being a rapper, now I have a podcast. And now I have this podcast. And just in the interactions with the listeners and the viewers of this, it's like there's still that influence and I'm still getting that kick. I know it's what I'm meant to do.
Still feeds
it still feeds my ego.
Yeah, the thing that you need.
Yeah, it still feeds me whatever I need. But it's a different aspect. It's almost like a branch off of it, right? There's certain things you can boil everything down to what somebody's doing, about why they're doing it, because it feeds something in them.
Did you ever feel like when you were younger you wanted to be a teacher?
I did. Yeah. I want
Weird, because I relate to that. I honestly felt like that too. Like when I was little, I would see teachers and I'm like, I want to do what you're doing because I think what you're doing is helping people.
It's funny. I've never once had that thought in my life.
In grade 10, the only reason I wanted to do it, actually, I had this thought. It was about a year and a half. I actually really considered it. And we're talking about grade 10 through halfway through grade 11.
Yeah.
And it's not even halfway through grade 11. I got suspended and expelled after grade 10. But I mean,
things kind of derailed.
A year and a half, I was like, because there was this teacher that I really enjoy, a social studies teacher, Miss Cassie. I still remember her name. And she influenced me so much that I thought I wanted to be a teacher. But again, I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to be able to have the influence.
Right.
So going from that, and like I said, having that influence, and it's not. And by the way, this is not power over people. This is not having power over people.
No, it's the ability to actually help and impart change in somebody's life. I think that's so important.
Exactly, and be able to inform people of maybe what they're doing wrong, and they can help me too. Like I'm never a guy that blocks everything off, says you can't tell me anything, right? Unless it's science based, whatever it is, right? But I always try and learn something from somebody, and I hope that I can impart some wisdom on them.
Right.
So that's the influence I'm talking about. I'm not talking about being a dictator and saying you do this. That's not what I want. Right. There has to be that equal exchange between people. So that was just me.
The exchange of knowledge is really important, and that's where like actual influence comes from. If you can talk something out, right? And if you can say, hey, from personal experience, here's what I've learned. Here's what's going on. This was my result. You might have a different result. However, odds are, if you were to replicate what I said, acted, you will likely have a similar result, right? It's like success leaves
You're modeling,
leaves
right?
clues. You're modeling, right? Like there's always going to be
Back to
blips.
good old
There's
Tony
always going to be, the one-offs. However, for the most part, if you execute a certain behavior and then you have a friend who replicates that exact same behavior, over time they're going to achieve similar results.
Let's take this to money. I was doing this trading thing. You've been messing around with it for a while. But I told you about this crazy academy. I'm learning all this stuff, and we're doing all the same thing. You walked into the room today. You've been on these calls with me for the last week or two, And I walked in, I showed you, I said, hey man, look at this. And you're like, fuck, I'm not even messing with that. I should actually just do it, right? So that's the influence, having positive influences on people instead of the negative ones when I was dealing drugs.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Or you put these roadblocks in your way too, creating excuses not to do or try these new things that are scary and take risks and do whatever. But having, you and Steve talking about all these high level trades, I know my brother and my dad have been involved in this world for quite some time as well. That all those little elements of influence made me go buy $200 worth of fucking cryptocurrency that I would have never otherwise would have spent the money on doing it and then doubled my money.
This is okay. Let me point out the exact point of influence I'm talking about, right? So I'm doing this trading thing and I post my trades on social media, right? I don't expect anything from it. I don't care about if anybody signs up. I hope they do because it's really for their betterment. But I don't force anybody to do anything. I don't expect them to do anything. But I just post my trades on social media. And I showed you a text when I first walked in today. I said, look, this is what happens. My buddy's like, hey, I'm in. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the kind of influence. They see what I'm doing and they explore that themselves. And they look into it and get the info and do a little bit of research and figure, maybe this might be for me. And then they're able to make their own determination about that, right? I'm not about telling somebody what to do or forcing them to do something. I'm about, here's the information. You make your own determination. We'll go from there, right?
So I got a question then. What is your perception of money? Some people think money is the root of all evil. I think poverty is the root of all evil. I think it's completely the opposite of what we've been fed our whole lives. But like, where's your stance on that? Money
for me, I've never, and I want to try and phrase this carefully because there was a turning point in my life. My parents, when I was 16, my parents got divorced over money, right? My dad was out of work for about 15 months. We're struggling to pay the bills. This is how I started doing a bunch of things that I probably shouldn't have been doing and helping to pay bills and this and that. Eventually, my mom left, they got a divorce, and I was crushed by that. And I said to myself, I'm never going to argue with my significant other over money. We can have the conversations. Yes, it has to be worked out. We have to have the budget. We have to have our income. We have to know everything, but we're never going to argue about it because I'm not going to go the same route that my parents went. Right now, that to me, I internalized that and said, I have to make as much money as I can while I'm young, so that I don't have to have the arguments about money, or the lack of money.
Because
right?
You saw
that turned into the dealing drugs and the chasing the money that I was talking about, right? Always looking for that dollar.
And it's funny that you say that. My childhood, my teenager is very similar. Very, very similar. Dad didn't work for over a year and it caused a ton of problems. Mm-hmm. And it's funny-ish to look back at it now because, both my parents are remarried and super happy. Mm-hmm. However, you look back at it and when you said that you didn't want to have those problems, that's, again, you forging the connection between, okay, not having this was not that not having money wasn't a problem. However, not having money caused problems that were very impactful.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I don't have a lot of money now. Mm-hmm. Just so we're clear, I don't have tons of money. I have a little bit, but not much, right? And I'm still in that same spot where I had this conversation with this girl I'm seeing 2 days ago. We actually kind of got into a little bit of an argument over it. She obviously during COVID and all this stuff, she has been working, so she's been collecting CERB, so her money's tight. I've been working, but my income, I've been focusing on so many of my hobbies that my income has been the same. I haven't gone up in the company and this and that because I know somewhere deep down that eventually I'm going to be quitting the company. So I don't want to be putting the more work in, right, to get the higher position.
You're investing in other places.
I'm investing in other places, right? So we had this conversation of she goes, listen, I know you're in a tight financial spot. These are what your bills equal out to a month. This is what you make a month. There's not that much extra, but we can make this work. And we didn't have that conversation until after she was frustrated enough to say, you know what? She didn't even say anything. She's like, I'm going home for the night. I'm not staying. And she just left. And I was confused. I went, you know what? I knew what it was in the back of my mind. I just couldn't put it into words at the time. So the next day when we're talking face to face, and it came up a little bit. And I said, listen, I'm not going to argue with money over you. Mm-hmm. I didn't tell her the backstory. I said, listen, I'm not going to argue with money over you. I'm like, give me a month and I'll sort this out. Mm-hmm. Like that's how I'd like to approach money. Right. Yes, like I said, we still know what the income is. We still know what the budget is. We still know what the outgoing is. Right. But I'm not going to argue with you about it. If we have to pay something else and this has to wait, cool. That has to wait. I'm very,
And that's just about creating the teammanship, right?
Yeah.
And getting on the same page and saying, hey, here's what we're going to do. This is how we're going to handle this if the situation comes up.
Yeah, financial pressure is easy for me to handle, and I know that's easy for me to say because growing up when I was a kid, I mean, we had to save up to be poor. You know what I mean? Like we had ham smell sandwiches. You know what I mean? One piece of ham, you slap 2 pieces of bread on it, smash it with a book, and that's what you get. Take the ham over to the next 2 pieces of bread. We saved up to be poor, man. Like it was bad, and I look back at those times and go, okay, we didn't have any money, but I was happy. I was a happy ass fucking kid, right? And I want my son to have that. So how do I recreate that? Except now I'm not dealing with being broke. I'm dealing with, okay, we have a little bit of money. So how do I still recreate that? And how do we still move forward? How does my son progress higher than me? See, for me, it's always about the next generation. I hope my son does better than I do. First of all, I hope I make $500 million. I hope I make $500 billion in my life, right? But I also hope my son does better than I do. And I hope his son does better than him and his son better than him, right? It's all about progression in the family lineage, as far as I'm concerned.
When I think that starts with teaching your kids about money and the importance of it
and
where
it
stands and how easy it is to come across.
We never spoke about money in our house growing up, ever. It was always the taboo topic. You never ask somebody how much they make. You never ask how much something costs. You either do it or you don't, right? And there was never talk to my parents with us about money, about how things cost, all that
You
stuff.
ask my kid right now, he will straight up tell you, "Nah, my dad's broke."
Yeah, right. And that's what I learned. I learned that not having those conversations when I was young put me into this financial spiral, this debt spiral in my mid-20s, right? And I know now that having those conversations with my kid and talking about money,
right?
And I mean, I think I said this on the podcast a couple times that I literally know millionaires. I can go and they'll literally pull out $1 million in cash.
Yeah,
they had that's the kind of money they have.
Sorry. You're good.
There's, these millionaires that I know will pull out $1 million in cash, right? And it's not to brag. It's to, I have it. See, what I didn't realize when I was growing up is that people with money talk about their money.
Yeah.
Not to brag, but to inform.
Right.
And the people that they have around them want to talk about the money and how to make the money and how to save the money and how to invest the money and how for the next generations to be better with the money. See, the cycle that we're in right now, especially, the disenfranchised minorities or the poor people that have no money,
right?
White, black, yellow, red, green, I don't give a fuck. They don't have the conversations about money. They focus on the love growing up, and which is, I agree, when your kids are coming up, have that conversation, be good with love, make sure there's love in the house, but you have to have those conversations
and just provide the knowledge, even if it's poor experience knowledge. Teach the kids what not to do.
Yeah. And because Devon homeschools his kid because he knows that they're not going to teach him any financial literacy in school. It's crazy to think that they're going to teach us how to climb a rope in gym class, but they're not going to teach me how to do my fucking taxes. Right? There's so many things that we need to do for our kids that we don't know how to do ourselves because I strongly feel that we're the skip generation. We're the generation that
it was meant to be easy for us.
Right. And it wasn't because our parents worked their balls off to get their CPP and their fucking everything else.
And before that, their parents
were factory workers.
Bought into a system that was created in the early 19th century.
For factories, they bought bonds and they bought this and that, right?
And that's still what the school system is teaching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's
evolved.
It's
we don't even have a gold-based standard for our money anymore.
No, it's
our money's value is worth whatever we fucking decide it's worth. There's no benchmark to compare it to, which is why we're seeing a rise in popularity with the cryptocurrencies.
Right.
Because there is a proven scarcity, and we know that there is only this much of that available.
21 million Bitcoin.
There are more of that's being made. It used to just be Bitcoin, and now it's 100,000 different versions of that. There's Dogecoin and XRP and this and that and whatever else. And nobody has any fucking idea how any of it works. And that's not getting taught to anybody else anywhere. And it may be the thing that replaces our current currency system in a ledger-based IOU system that still even like I spent probably 6 days straight from the time I fucking woke up to the time I went to bed reading every single article on the Binance fucking website. It says you want to learn about crypto? And I was like, sure I do, thinking this is going to be a nice, quick and simple.
20,000 pages later.
There's fucking 15 words in that first paragraph of words I don't know, but they're hot linked to an article so you understand what that fucking
And
word
you
is.
just open
Before
that
I know it, I
rabbit
have
hole.
60,000 fucking tabs open on my browser going, what the fuck did I get myself into? Thankfully, I'm willing to do that to learn about it, but I don't think a lot of people are.
Most people aren't like that. And, you know, I'll give another example, personal example. It took me till I was 38 years old. I'm 38 now. It took me till I was 38 years old, 3 months ago, to learn how to open up a bank account for myself. To learn how to get a cell phone in my name. To learn how to get NMAX and Direct Energy and TELUS all hooked up in my house. Because I never handled it. Because it wasn't taught to me. Because I never had to do it.
Right.
Right? There's certain experiences and certain things that, guys, you should go through as you're coming up your early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, that you get to learn these things, learn these steps, right? I was babied. I was babied to the point that it
Because they thought that you weren't capable.
Here's the thing. It's not that they didn't think I wasn't capable. It's that they wanted to protect me from things that I was already doing. In my mid-20s, I was selling $2,000 worth of cocaine a day.
Yeah.
Right? Profit. From one phone. Right?
From one phone.
Everything I dealt with was in cash.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about credit. I didn't know anything about bank accounts. I knew about how to stash money, how to bury a duffel bag.
You know what the weirdest day of my life was?
I
Was
knew
going
about
to pick up weed from a homie and sending him an e-transfer.
Right.
That was the weirdest day of my entire life. I'm like, I'm getting
fucking
weed
weird.
and it's legal
I mean,
from a
yeah,
homie.
Now you can e-transfer, you can go online, you can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, man. Like, let's go back to what you said, Devon, where you, or both of you have been talking about it, where you now are doing these things, and then as soon as you open or you start learning one thing, then it's like a whole world of other things that you need to figure out how to do.
Sometimes that rabbit hole is great, and sometimes
it's a huge rabbit hole. It's a huge rabbit hole, and so, you know, it is great sometimes. However, sometimes it's overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Right? And so then you need to figure out, okay, cool, how much am I willing to segment and off and learn? And like, cryptocurrency is a crazy thing because it is a huge, crazy, fucked up world where there is different lingo. There's 100,000 different things.
If you don't understand
there's
blockchain,
100,000 different gurus. There's so many different things, and it can be completely overwhelming. However, take a little bit. Take half an hour a day.
Not only that, there's
Just
so
like little things that you can do.
There's so many, I guess, points to go to. Like, for instance, I've been trying to learn sociology and psychology more than most people, right? Online, there's so many courses I can take and this and that. I learned more about sociology and psychology talking to people and figuring out how they work rather than taking a course. That's just the way I learn. I learned through hands-on experience, right? So if I was to learn about Bitcoin, when I learned about Bitcoin, it probably took me 4 years. I first time I heard about Bitcoin was 2009. Okay? I didn't start learning about Bitcoin until midway through 2010, and then it took me 4, 5, 6 years because I wasn't really that interested. Nobody's really talking about it. There was nothing really going on with it. Then all of a sudden it shot the fuck up. I said, okay, hold on. I said, wait, let me figure this shit out.
Wait, what? Yeah.
Right?
I'm still trying to remember what my email was back in 2008, just in case I put 20 bucks in that bitch and I fucking don't know where it is. I could be a billionaire, guys. I don't know.
Right? But it's fucked up. I mean, the way people learn about certain things, like you seem like you're a book guy. Like if you read something, if you read something, you can internalize it. And you can make that a habit, right? For me, it took me, like, I know Tony Robbins has got books out. I know he has tapes out. I know he has all this stuff. It took me to fully focus and be running. So my body's physically doing something else. So the only thing my brain can do is learn.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing going in there, right? So
you're just absorbing whatever's happening.
Right, but I figured that's the best way for me to learn. And having those situations and learning the best way to learn about what you need to learn about is how it's going to go about, right? And it's how it's going to get you to that next plateau. And then from there you go, okay, I'm at a plateau now. What do I want to learn about now? And I think I'm going to touch on what you were saying earlier is not many people want to learn these days. They go through the 12 years of school. They maybe take a post-grad. And they go, maybe take a year off and then go to university or whatever.
Nah, bro, I didn't even like that.
Some people might take a fucking dead-end job somewhere and try and learn or work their way up. I literally know a guy who started at McDonald's the same time I did, back when I was 14 years old. He now owns 5 McDonald's.
And you know what? If that's the route you take, that's the route you take. That guy, I would say, is overly ambitious and has
Absolutely.
done so much amazing shit with his life, with what he was offered, and how he leveled himself up in the
And
fucking
by the way,
game.
he came up
And good
with
for
less
him.
than I did.
But and this is the thing though. It ain't even like that. It's not even that people aren't willing to learn and the knowledge isn't there. Because trust me, 17 million fucking articles on the Binance website you can go to right now and understand everything.
If you got the time, you got the patience, you got the wherewithal.
If you have the willingness to actually do it. But you got people out here, dude, that are literally just watching a fucking 15-second TikTok with 3 coin tags, and they go on Binance and buy a bunch of shit with dollars they don't even have, leveraged off credit they're spending 29% on, and they fucking lose all their money, and they're like, see, it doesn't work. And it ain't like that.
See,
I'd love to hear how, especially because Steve, I think, is probably the most financially literate person in this room. I'd love to get a little bit more insight into the background about how that fucking happened.
Before we get into that, do you know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is?
Do you know what I just, while we're doing that, this is how you figure it out, because I'm sitting here, I was a little distracted going through this because I'm watching a bunch of shit right now, and I was like, okay, cool, and I have, different investments all over the place, right? And I have learned that if you have one source of income, you are one day away from being broke.
Failure. Yeah.
Right, so then it's like, okay.
What did they say? 7 streams of income to become a millionaire? Is that what it is?
I think there's
Something like that.
there's
Anyway,
an
I'm sorry,
accurate,
keep going.
So now here's just a situation. Okay, so I was sitting here because I would like to get back into forex trading, and I've done it before, and I got away from it. However, now I'm in a place where I want to be able to just ride that wave, and I'm like, okay, and I'm the type of guy that will take risks on everything. Right, like I'm the type of guy where I look at
jump off the cliff and build the plane on the way down.
I look at my investment account, and I look at my investment account, and I'm like, cool, that looks really good. I look at my savings account, I'm like, sweet, man, I got savings. And then I look at my checking account, I'm like, I have $100 in my checking account. And then I look at it, I'm like, I'm broke. And I look because I have like $100 in my checking account, and I have max credit cards because I like to go out and have fun and drinks, and I do the thing, and then I'm like, oh shit, like I max my credit card, and that's like, okay, I just need to move some money around. So I was sitting here through this whole conversation thinking like, how can I leverage a gain, re-leverage, so that I can start another stream of income, right? So it's like, oh shit, I have, even just in the last month and a half, like I've made almost 20K off of crypto, and off of like a total of like a $3,000 investment, right? So it's like, oh shit, and there's like light bulb, and just in 4 minutes, I pulled $1,000 of profit out of a crypto account, right? Because it's all that bank's money at that point.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool. Now here's my $1,000 to start trading with. Boom, and there's another stream of income. It's done. So it's all about using what you're generating,
leveraging what
you're generating to generate more and more and more and more.
Perfect example of that, actually. Let's talk about leveraging, right? No, don't have to talk about money when we talk about leveraging, right? Devon leveraged his influence over my ex-fiance to get an interview with me. I leveraged that interview into a business. He leveraged that business into money through accounts and this and that, but also into this. We leverage everything we had.
All the money that we earned at the beginning of the year when we first launched Seven Tree literally paid for the equipment that we're using to record this podcast.
Which is crazy.
Exactly.
Now you're just doubling down and doubling down and doubling down. And this is the thing, don't dive into something crazy invested or leveraged if you don't know about it. Take the time, learn it, figure it out, make sure it's something that you can actually get invested in, and then take the time to be a student with it, right? Like I'm learning crypto. Right. However, okay, cool. You pay attention. I've been, dabbling for, a couple years now. Okay, I know the lingo. I know what's what. I know how it's going. I'm not day trading crypto because, in my opinion, crypto is just such a bull market over the next decade. You just get in and fucking just
hold on for the ride.
Get in and put your phone away.
See,
Bitcoin's at $72,000.
Right.
How the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, there's that much demand.
Yeah, I'm all about learning a system before you dive in. If you could lose everything, learn something first, right? When I say leverage, I mean you have to leverage what you have. If I have $100 to start, if I have $100 extra money, that I can play with, and that's not gonna make me late on rent. It's not gonna be not have groceries in the fridge, whatever it is. Make sure you have that money all saved. And if you're gonna invest in something, take $100, something you can afford to lose, $100, $1,000, 10 grand, whatever your price point is. Take it and lose it. I'm very big on this. I'm big on taking taking a loss first, and internalizing that loss and feeling those emotions and saying, I never want to feel that again. For instance,
it builds up that resilience to be able to continue down that path.
Exactly. My trading account, I started with a $100,000 demo account, right? I instantly blew it because I wanted to feel what losing $100,000 feels like. Started the next $100,000 account, started making trades that I thought were good, and then I lost it all. The reason I had to do the second account because I had to realize, this is how I learn and how I make myself learn. I had to realize that I don't know everything.
Right.
Because I know myself.
You come in kind of like
I come in hot.
over the. You know who it was? Jason Capital, which dude's a beast. My sister put me on him, and man, he's really got it locked in. He told me about the learning curve that we go through, and I can't remember it verbatim, so you're gonna have to look it up.
Effect.
So you start here, and you're like optimistic, right? You're overly optimistic. You're like, I can definitely do that, and then you like start learning and shit, and you become like, oh, this is a lot of work, but I still think I can do this. And then you get to the bottom of this thing, and you're like, fuck this, it's too much work. There's no way I'm ever going to succeed. I think I'm failing. It's over. And if you can break past that lowest point of this,
80% of quitters,
then you get into realistic optimism where you're like, okay, it's fucking hard work, but I think I can still do it now. And then you get to that place now where you're in a position of success.
Huge. And that just comes with persistence. And if you're going to lose big. However, don't put yourself.
Don't do it in the real
life. No, that's why I said
do it.
No, that's why I said if something you can afford, right?
Yeah.
So I want to explain the Dunning-Kruger effect. Dunning-Kruger effect is knowing enough about a topic to talk about it, but not enough. No, knowing enough about a topic to think you're right, but not enough to know why you're wrong.
Right.
Right. It's the reverse bell curve you were talking about, right? The bell curve goes like this. Reverse bell curve is like that, right? You have to understand, it starts with that optimism, getting down into the dirt, getting into the fucking mud and saying, can I really do this? Yeah. And then when it starts to peak up just a little bit, you'll notice 80% of people fall off.
That's where everybody gives up because they realize that it's actually hard work.
Oh shit, it's too hard, or I can't do it, or they give up on themselves, whatever it is, right? But if you take, and literally this is how quick it works, if you take an extra hour, an hour a week, and start learning it more, and start climbing up that percentage ladder, you're on the up curve, and you have that informed optimism. You say, listen, I can do this. Do you think when I started podcasting, it was a fly-by-night thing? It was I have no idea what the fuck we're doing, but let's just throw some fucking, let's go to the studio with my buddy John, let's do it, let's fucking just record some shit. Started talking shit for an hour. Next thing you know, I'm there every week. Next thing you know, I'm there every month. Next thing you know, I'm there every year. Next thing you know, we've built a company around it. We've had 12 successful podcasts, and then I break off into my own and do my own thing. All the while, I'm learning all these different steps. When you get to a point, you're like, okay, there was a point that was tough. It was tough as fuck. When you break past that point and you start seeing a little bit of success, you're like, you know what? I can fucking do this. And it builds your confidence along with your knowledge. And those two together makes you unstoppable. The problem is, not many people get past that, right? 80% of people fail.
This is almost really similar to how like dumb people are so confident.
Absolutely.
Because they don't know that they're
confidence,
it's
right. Ignorance.
They don't know, they're just ignorant to the fact that they're incapable.
Nothing can go wrong because they don't know what the different outcomes are. So they're fearless.
Yeah, they don't know what can go wrong, so nothing can go wrong.
And you know what? There's a beautiful thing about that.
I missed
There's
that.
a fucking beautiful thing about that.
I don't think I've ever fully like experienced that myself, but like as a concept or an idea, that optimism of just being able to like, I'm still at the place where I realize that how much work is involved in accumulating wealth and building an empire and doing something meaningful with your life. But I've never been in a place where I'm like, oh, that'll never happen. I'm so optimistic about all things, and I'm like, okay, I'm just doing it wrong. And maybe that's to my own detriment. It's like, oh, maybe I'm just doing it wrong, and maybe it makes me second guess myself, and maybe I spend too much time learning when I should just be executing on the knowledge I already currently have, or whatever the fucking case may be. But I'm always still kind of moving in that forward trajectory where it's like there's no reason why this is going to fail. I just need to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I blame myself in that.
It's interesting to me. Steve came in here last week and told us about this business opportunity he's got and that he's going to be investing into. And I asked him, I said, what do you know about this? He said, nothing. And I went, what? He goes, no, a guy I trust approached me with this opportunity. I trust him. He knows what he's talking about. I don't.
Right.
I'm going to invest with him because he can pull me through that curve. Right? He can pull.
I recognize that
there's
I
something
don't need
magical
to know because
right
it's not even like a field that I have any inclination whatsoever to. And I've told a couple people about it, and my friends, they have like that blue personality. A lot of them, they're like, "What's it doing? What's this? What's this? What are the roadblocks?" And I'm like,
don't know.
I was like, those are all great questions. I didn't even think about it, right? Because I was like, man, I know absolutely fucking zero about anything that's even in the field. I don't know the science. I don't know what is out there. I don't fucking know anything at all. That's so far outside of my field of expertise. However, the questions that I asked were, okay, I know the guy. I know the reputation. I know the other companies that he started. And he told me about the team that he built around this. And I said, cool. Sounds good.
See, having the Dunning-Kruger effect,
enough.
that's the Dunning-Kruger effect working to your advantage, right?
Right.
You're optimistic. You're still up here at the very start saying you're optimistic about it. And this other guy has already gone through the bottom of the curve and he's way up here with that knowledgeable optimism. He says, listen, I know this 100%. I know every single aspect of this, right? And if you want to be over here, cool. You can be over here over time, but you don't need to be there right now. I'll pull you through this bottom curve. This is what happened for me and social media marketing. I didn't know a damn thing about it. Not a thing. I had a podcast company with a couple other guys. Didn't know anything about marketing, just started fucking around. When Devon interviewed me for Business Rebel, I went, okay, he does this. I need to learn that. And he's taught me so many things without me, not even me asking direct questions. I learned just by seeing him.
It's like
do
osmosis.
Things. Yeah, by seeing him do things, and not even while I'm in the room, seeing things online that I know he did, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, how did he do that? And remember to ask him about that. And then I get here, I go to think to ask him about it, and he's doing it. And I'm like, oh fuck, I don't have to ask him, he's doing it.
Yeah, you can just watch it and experience.
So I'm taking his experience and leveraging that for my advantage.
Well, there's an equation for wealth.
Okay.
Right. And it's a very simple equation, right? And wealth is a simple equation of value times leverage, right? You have to be providing value, right, in some capacity. And the other component is you have to know how to leverage it, right? And you see a lot of, I'm going to use small businesses, right? You take, a mom and pop, retail store, right? They might, or an artist, right? An artist is a good example, a musician, artist, painter, anything like that. They might have the most talent in the world. They might be the best fucking guitar player you've ever met. However, if they're afraid to go on stage, if they're afraid to play in front of people, if they don't know if they don't know how to get their music out there, if they don't know how to put themselves in front of people who are going to promote it, who are going to record it, who are going to produce it, you're fucked. Right? If you have a painter, you can paint the best painting in the whole fucking world. If you don't know what to do with it after, you're fucked. That being said, there's also the flip side of it where, I might be really good at networking and creating the bridging the gap and marketing and doing all the things to create a shitload of leverage. I might not have any talent. Right? You have to have both, or you have to have one of the two and partner up with somebody who can fill them gaps.
That is literally our company. I'm the big dreamer. I dream about all these fucking crazy. I have these crazy ass ideas. I sent him text and he's like, I'm like, I got an idea. He's like, oh, okay, another one. Like, or I'm like, I have something.
Here we go.
That's literally what he texted me. He's like, what is it this time? You know what I mean? I'm like, can we? He's like, yes. He's like, I don't even know if he knows that we can do things. He's just like, sure, let's try it. Let's go. Let's do it.
It's like, entirely possible.
I never asked how. I don't want to know how. I don't need to know how. He knows how.
I'm not a how guy either.
Right? I'm the guy that goes, okay, we can do it. Great. Let me take my experience and from gaining rapport from people and fucking making this happen. You take the back end. I'll take the front end. Let's go. Right? So he's leveraging my talent and I'm leveraging his talent.
Yeah.
We're leveraging it to.
And you're working together to achieve a common goal.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It's great.
It's crazy fucking awesome.
That's the power of recognizing where your strengths are, though. I think that's a huge thing that I admire in you is that like this is what I'm good at. I know people who are good at other shit, and I'm gonna let them do their other shit. And if it so happens that they need what I got, cool, then I'm in.
Then let's go.
You see, I think we're more inclined.
It's so much less stressful that way, man. You never fucking round. I'm never thinking about, oh fuck, I have no idea how to do this, because I just focus on what I do know how to do.
You know, I think we're more inclined as individuals to. I mean, obviously, we're gonna gear or head towards what we find interesting and what kind of amuses us or what makes us, fulfills us, or whatever else, right? And you know, if something that we're doing makes us happy and we're doing things and we're trying to leverage that and we don't know the other side of that, you know, you got to team up with somebody whose passion or is going towards that other thing that you need. You have to, and then take that, like even take, for instance, our company, Seven Tree Media, right? We're now a media company, and we're leveraging A-list apparel, and we're leveraging the Morning Pea podcast, and we're leveraging House of Cars, or whatever other fucking company we're dealing with. We're leveraging these to, first of all, help them succeed. Number one, right? Number two is help us get an advantage. Number three, help them get an advantage.
Yep.
Right. It's a symbiotic relationship, and everybody has to be happy. And if you're not in that, if you're not in it to learn every aspect of it, find somebody you can partner with. If you can't find anybody to partner with, find a different field of work. Like, you know what I mean? There's only so far you can go with the knowledge you have if you don't want to learn.
Totally. I think that's a really great way to end it, because
Fantastic.
honestly, that was a very dialed episode. I was distracted for a lot of it. There was a lot of really good points there.
Awesome.
And it was just cool because, you know what, when even just listening to it, that solution I just came up with was the easiest fucking thing in the world. I'm like, that's not even my money. It was free money. Basically, it's like, oh, cool. Now I get to go do something completely different with it.
Which means you got to think about money a little bit differently, though, too. It's no longer
It's
some
Money is a tool.
spiritual thing.
It's a
Yeah,
tool.
exactly. It's
Money
like
is a tool.
it's a tool to accomplish the things that you need to accomplish, and as long as you can treat it as such, you achieve the things that you're aiming to achieve.
Well, guys, listen. I'm sorry I spoke for 3/4 of the time. So next week on the Parnel Show, see you guys later. I'll probably go.